there and welcome to Lorena's Labyrinth. I'm Anah Parreli and today we're going to be talking about the angel Stamera, or who I call Stamera. She is the angel of forgiveness. Now, before we start talking about her and her role and function, I'd like to thank you for clicking on the video, for visiting the channel, and I invite you to leave your comments, your own understandings, your experiences, anything that you might like to make a comment about at all. Please do so in the description, because I will always read the comments, even if I don't respond to them all immediately. And most of the time, if it's a bigger type comment or something that requires a bigger response from me, I will usually put a comment below yours saying that I'll discuss it in the Sunday yarning, so that people are aware that they're going to get a mention in the video that I put up on a Sunday. Anyway, just a reminder too, you can find a whole range of videos about angels, my own journey, about finding angels and working with angels on the angel playlist. I wasn't always a believer in angels, but clearly right now, definitely I am a big believer these days. So what might come as a surprise to you when we talk about forgiveness and Stamera's role for us or with us as part of forgiveness is, when we think of forgiveness, I would imagine most people are thinking, oh, it's forgiving people that betrayed me and let me down and all the rest of it. But actually the message is about self-forgiveness more than anything else, because this is her primary role, to help us forgive ourselves for failing to meet our own expectations and for having a lack of tolerance, shall we say, towards our own selves and our own decision making, shall we say. Sure, we all make mistakes, they're all part of learning, but we can be our worst judges and our worst critics. And part of healing and opening up and connecting to the divine energy is this capacity to be able to accept ourselves, and that involves a pathway of forgiveness more often than not, if not every single time. So let's crack on and talk about what we can expect from Stamera. So the first thing we need to understand about Stamera is she's actually what is called a golden light angel. She is part of the golden light order. And if you've checked out the angelic hierarchy, you'll see that there's a range of different type of angelic orders, and that most of them are genderless. So I'll just quickly brief over this. Angels tend to be genderless unless they're seraphim or cherubim, which means that they will present in either masculine or feminine form if a person has got the clairvoyant skills and abilities and they can actually see them. And they tend to present in the way that is the most comfortable for those of us that are calling upon or invoking their energy. Now, the other thing too, though, is that while this is the case, the seraphim will always present as masculine, cherubim always as female, but all the other orders are what is, if I can speak, stumbling over my words here, all the other orders are considered to be white light angels. So for people that have got the clairvoyant gifts, some, and I've heard them say this, they will say, oh, they've all got a golden aura. The other white light orders may carry a bit of gold in their aura when they manifest, but a golden light angel is actually, they've got the golden light. Easier said than done. In fact, actually, just a very simple activity that I could share with you, and this will help you to identify what your guardian angel is. I've still got to put those videos up, but if I was to say to you, close your eyes and visualize the white light, okay? You might struggle really hard to do that. And then if I say to you, now close your eyes and try and visualize the golden light, you're going to have greater ease to visualize one or the other, and whichever one comes to you with ease is going to be representative of the angelic order that your guardian angel is associated with. But cracking on with this, let's talk about golden light angels. They differ from the white light angels in that the white light is kind of focused. When I say the white light, I'm talking about the orders of angels. They're more focused on thought and words. And if we were talking about psychological teachings in the academic field, which of course I had to study some of the psychology, there's a different thought or professional argument, in you like, as to whether or not people are top-down processes, meaning that they think something and then they make it true, or they feel something. If they become aware of their feelings before they become aware of their thoughts, they're considered to be a bottom-up processor. And so I found it very interesting when I was doing my studies. I was able to work out that this is my understanding, of course, you may think differently, that white light angels are probably the top-down processes. They would be associated with people that think. They become aware of their thoughts and how they influence their feelings. It's all linked anyway, but I think for people that are connected to golden light angels, which incidentally are the minority, they will become aware of their feelings before they become aware of the underlying thought that influences the way they feel and behave. So, oops-a-daisy. Sorry about that. I just had to sort out my little doggy who decided to have a little bark right then. But anyway, going back to this, the golden light angels, their focus is upon feelings, okay? The feelings and the emotions. And just so you know, they actually are same but different, okay? But anyway, going back to this, they also have a strong sexuality about them. And I can understand people going like, what? Angels with sexual energy? We're talking about kundalini. We're talking about passion, okay? So sometimes this is described as being sexual. So basically, the golden light angels are associated with the harnessing of passion, the desire to create and manifest, and this becomes part of their emotional energy, shall we say. It's very intense and it's very even overpowering at times. What else can I say about this? Probably not a lot more about golden light angels from a general perspective, only that Stamera is one of the golden light angels. So when we talk about forgiveness, it does come with that fiery element, that passion. And so this is what we're looking at doing, is we're harnessing the energy, the fire, the passion as part of forgiveness. So, as previously said, I think when we start conversations about the word forgiveness, we're conditioned to think that this means about forgiving other people. And, those whole sayings, they all come back. Forgiveness doesn't mean that what a person does to us is okay. It just means that we choose to not carry around an angry heart towards them. We choose to let go of the pain and to move on. Well, the thing is, when we talk about Stamera and what she can teach us about forgiveness, it's kind of the same, but we do it for ourselves. We're not talking about forgiving other people here. We're actually encouraging ourselves to forgive ourselves for the mistakes we've made. And she explains also that forgiveness is a process of acceptance, that things that have already occurred, they're now in the past tense. We can't undo them, but we can change how we feel about the experience of pain in the present moment. Now, when we talk about self-forgiveness, obviously this process has a rhythm, and she says that it can't be forced, and this is something I support as well. The rhythm and the flow of self-forgiveness is one about releasing the feelings of pain and suffering and healing them. And it is a genuine emotion. We can't fake or force it, okay? It's this process of owning and taking responsibility for our part in whatever the events were that transpired, recognizing that we probably made mistakes and that it can take time. And I want to make the point here that when we talk about this process and any healing processes, we can hear that it can take time, and it really can take time to go through a process. But other times when we throw ourselves into it, what I've found when working with angelic and divine healing energy, the process actually can be fast-tracked a little bit. It doesn't mean that, wave a magic wand and all pain is undone, but what it means that we're able to progress and process enough to be able to open up to more love, more forgiveness, more acceptance of what has transpired, and to emotionally release it. So let's look at this a bit more. The important part of the process to understand is that to fully forgive ourselves does mean an emotional release, okay? The more we do something, however, the more we practice it, the easier it becomes and the quicker we can actually process feelings and get through it. So the message from Stamera here is that when we force forgiveness, we actually deny and reject our emotions, our feelings, and this can be through repression, it can be through suppressing them. And she explains that the feelings are this vital part of the healing process because it's through this release that we're able to raise our vibration and allow more light to enter. Now, before I go on to the next part and talk about balance, I want to explain this as from an emotional perspective. If we think about our entire body and sense of self being a cup of water, and after a number of experiences that bring us pain and suffering and all the rest of it, and where we feel very heavy with this pain and suffering, as with a cup of dirty water, shall we say, you've got to let a little bit out. You've got to create the space in that vessel that is us to allow for the lighter and more healthier emotions to come in. So this is why it's a process of release. It's little by little by little. I mean, if you were to throw it all out immediately, I guess, then there would be a void. There would be an empty space in that glass or that vessel that is ours. So the idea is that we release these emotions with as minimal pain as possible. We don't want to torture ourselves in the process, especially if people have got issues like PTSD. It can be, we don't want to have them re-traumatizing. We just want to be able to release those emotions in a safe way. So I guess where I'm going with this is it might look like if you give yourself the space to have a cry and then go and find something positive to do, if you're dealing with this kind of thing. But anyway, going on with the messages. With all things, there's a balance. Socially, we're taught to blame our feelings. If we feel sad or bad or whatever and nothing has happened, but perhaps we're reliving trauma, then we go into that automatic space of berating ourselves. Oh, there's something wrong with me. I'm an angry person. I'm a happy person. I'm a mad, sad, glad. Yes, these are all feelings. And yes, we are actually responsible for the way we feel. But this doesn't make us responsible for the nature of the events that occurred to us. So if you've been the victim of something terrible, that doesn't make it your fault. You are not responsible for what happened to you. The idea is that we are responsible for the feelings and our reactions to these events, even if they're really horrible. And this can be a big thing dependent on the nature of the event that happened to a person. So where I'm going with that is it's normal to have painful emotions as a response to painful events. But as we release and come to terms with it, then we get an internal peace, shall we say. The other thing too is that when we emotionally suppress and lock those emotions down and tell us that we're bad people for having the emotions or whatever, then this is going to have a short-term impact, shall we say, on pacifying us, because the idea, well, there's no idea about it. The fact remains that if we repress our emotions, it's kind of putting the lid down on Pandora's box, and eventually they will come bubbling out and explode from the vessel again. So the idea is that we unpack, we release the emotions, and as we do it, there's less there to explode, shall we say. So if a trigger happens, the more we unpack that pain and release it in healthy ways, and then refill the cup with positive emotions and experiences, the less impact those triggers are going to have, not only on the way we feel, but also on the way we act. And I would imagine that you'll be able to think of examples for yourself when you've actually been carrying around a lot of pain inside of you, and then something else happens in your environment. It's not really that big a deal, but it happens. And because you've got all this untapped unreleased emotion inside of you, it just triggers that rage or that anger, that sorrow, that grief, and it just comes pouring out. The problem with it is that it can actually impact really badly on our relationships because, of course, we're overreacting to whatever has transpired. But anyway, I think the point that Stamera makes too is that within society, we're currently taught to blame our feelings as opposed to our experiences for any unpleasantness that we currently feel or any of the uncomfortable feelings. But this is not healthy, okay? It's okay to have, where we're going with this is, it's okay to have uncomfortable feelings. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to be sad. All of these heavy, toxic feelings, because unless they're released, as I say, they will bubble up inside of us at some point in time. So it's okay to have these feelings. We just have to release them in healthy ways and try not to compound them. And suppression and repression is definitely going to compound the experiences we've had. So I just saw how long this video is, so I'm going to try and speed it up a little bit, okay? Sometimes I think an image goes a long way to helping to understand. And with this image here, what I'm trying to convey is the heavy toxic emotions that we try and pretend that we don't have. These are the sediment that are sitting at the bottom in this image here that you can see, the anger, the sadness, the stuff that we try and keep private. When somebody says, how are you going? Oh, I'm great, thank you, as we push that pain down. Okay, so the point is with this image here, as you can see, that if you shake that bottle or if you add some more to it, then it's just going to fill up. I used to have a saying, and in some ways I still agree with it, that when we're talking about healing pain and we want to fast track the process, right? We can treat our emotional injuries a little bit like a festering boil and just go straight for it, go to the core of it, lance it, bring it out. And it does definitely purify. I mean, obviously you've got to do a little bit of work to keep this purification happening of the emotional body through the process. But for some people, depending on the nature of the injury, they actually can't cope personally because they've got so much pain there with actually going in and having this forceful approach to healing, if you like. So for everybody, it's got to be at your own pace, and this is where that process can be very important. So let's just look at self-forgiveness a little bit more as part of forgiving ourselves, right? Many people are actually not aware that they have become locked in this pain and suffering. And, especially if they're struggling on a day-to-day basis, they blame themselves for everything. And then the other thing is too, it becomes compounded because they might become lacking in energy and motivation. They might then start struggling in their day-to-day function, and then they start berating themselves. Then they get cross at themselves because they fail to meet other people's expectations, and they start doing all that self-questioning of, well, what if I did something differently? Or if we're talking about past context, maybe I could have been a different person. Maybe I could have done something differently and there would have been a different outcome. So everything becomes, I could have, I should have, I would have, but I didn't, okay, for whatever the reasons are. And this is what many people struggle with. And this includes those people that have experienced genuine, when I say genuine, everybody's pain is real, but I don't want to use examples because it can be quite distressing, really. But let's say somebody made a wrong decision, walked down a wrong path at night time and then got physically attacked, They could be living with this whole, I should never have done that, I should have known better, I shouldn't have walked down that street, I knew I shouldn't have, my little squealy alarm bells went off, but I still went down that pathway anyway. This is the kind of beration and beating up that we're talking about. This is the unforgiveness, okay? Now, for veterans, military veterans especially, it could be, I shouldn't have enlisted, I shouldn't have done this or that or whatever. But the other thing is too, when we look at the decisions that we've made in the past that perhaps led to a pathway of suffering, there may not have been many choices in that, like somebody enlists, they may not be aware of what is going to be occurring down the track or what might transpire. We all make decisions based on the information that is given to us at the time, or that we can access. So basically, back to Stamera's advice, rather than repress emotions, her information is basically it's about changing how we feel, and to do it sincerely. Right, our feelings encourage us to take notice of them, and they are to inspire actions. And the first action that we can do is actually express and communicate with each other the truth of our feelings. Once we've actually communicated and expressed them, then we can actually start to transform that experience. So the thing is, to looking at a smaller scale than these extremes of that I talked about with perhaps military personnel, when you're trying to navigate a conversation and communicate with a person about how you feel, if that person is unwilling to see or understand your feelings, then you may be being guided to actually leave a situation that is not a good fit for you right now. It's not right for you anymore. It may have been right for you in the past, but it's not right for you right now. It may be right for you in the future, down the track when things change. But for right now, your uncomfortable feelings, if they're being disregarded and you're being honest and transparent with people about how you feel, I'm not comfortable with X and Y, and the other person is being honest and truthful to you, well, I'm sorry about that, but the bottom line is there's nothing I can do about this situation. You know what I mean? You're unable to negotiate a suitable outcome there for all parties, then it may well be that it's time to move on. And at these times, right, because this is when it gets difficult sometimes, not always, of course. Everybody's situation is different, but if it becomes a difficult decision to make, if you're being guided to leave a situation, Stamera says, call with the desire of your heart and ask for the strength, clear vision, and courage to make healthy decisions. So when we speak about trauma, Stamera actually gives us this message that our body has a cellular memory. It holds on to the feelings of traumatic events. In the same way that your mind can recall images and pictures, the body has the capacity to hold the memory of emotions and feelings. And when harsh memories are repressed, as we've talked about, with this pushing them down into this little box, and every now and again they're bubbling to the surface and blowing the lid off, it's actually much better to create a quiet space to take the lid off, take a little bit of a peer inside, grab the ones at the top probably, unpack and process some of these feelings that you have or emotions so that you can release them. And this can take real courage combined with a genuine desire. But the thing is, the very important thing or part of this message is that until you unpack these boxes and messages, you're going to magnetically recreate and experience the patterns and events until you're ready to let these emotions go. I could go into that a little bit more in as far as just saying, look, energy is magnetic. We know that like attracts like. And so therefore, if we've had experiences of pain, and I've always said this to somebody, if you've got a few trust issues there happening because what has happened to you in the past, then the likelihood is until you've resolved what has gone wrong and why you're in this situation where perhaps you trusted the wrong people, because sometimes, not everything is about us. The bottom line is you're going to attract into your aura or attract to you as a potential partner somebody, once again, who is untrustworthy. So this is a matter of learning perhaps boundaries in relationships, learning to trust your own judgment, trust your intuition, all of this kind of stuff, so that you can actually ensure that those people that you attract to yourself, that they are trustworthy people as opposed to untrustworthy. So this is where healing of emotions and the purification of your energy is vital to forgiveness. Stamera also makes the point that while it might seem very cruel or harsh for us to have to keep repeating patterns that bring pain to us, it's actually a blessing in disguise, because these patterns identify the things or the emotions that are keeping us separate from divine energy and the love of the Creator. And once we can release these behaviours and patterns that foster this idea and concept of separation and lack of love, then we can create this space internally for more love within ourselves, and that we can then give to other people, which results in happier and healthier experiences. So we often hear the saying, forgive and forget, like move on, get over it, and that kind of thing. Well, it can create a bit of a knee-jerk reaction for those people that have experienced some embedded trauma, shall we say. But the idea of this particular saying within this context is that once we have identified and released the pain and the trauma, then we let go of the memory of the experience as well. Because we recognise that the impact upon the body is obviously harmful, we recognise that holding on to these memories actually sits in the body and fosters and recreates pain and suffering. So we consciously choose to remove the physiological memories of the trauma. If you speak to people with PTSD or symptoms like PTSD, they'll often refer to their physiological symptoms, which could be the neuropathy, it could be the butterflies, the anger, the emotional stuff. Anyway, so the idea is heal the memory. Now, the other thing too, people that have got this embedded pain, in this situation, I think it's easier to talk about not so much the deep pain, but perhaps the more superficial type pain, because in this instance, it's easier to relate to, is that when we've had suffering, you know what it's like. They say there's a passage of time that takes to heal pain, and we can have bad experiences, and just through the natural process of time, those painful experiences lose their grip on us usually, okay? The idea is that when we call upon Stamera to assist with this process of forgiveness, that it doesn't take so long, okay? We can kind of fast track it a little bit, and we can then, that saying, you're healed when you can actually remember the situation that occurred to you, but you are not emotionally attached to that situation anymore. You step into this role of being an observer as opposed to a participant of the situation from an emotional perspective. So the interesting part of healing as well, it includes this business of shame and self-hatred. And Stamera's message is one that when the behaviour of another person hurts you, this is actually a hidden blessing, because it exposes levels of guilt and shame, and worst case scenario, self-hatred, that is often lying really hidden down in the aura that we're not even aware that exists, okay? And when the other people do these specific actions, that it brings it to the surface, especially if we're talking about things like feeling rejected and this kind of stuff. So this is pretty deep level healing. And the first step is to be honest and admit how you really feel about the situation. And instead of reacting and knee-jerking to them, you're encouraged to welcome them, embrace them as guiding tools. And when you're in them, and they're big ones, because let's be real, we are human and they can be extremely challenging, the advice is to ask Stamera to help you to see clearly and understand the opportunities for you for healing within the situation. As I say, it can be a very stark message to understand from the perspective of the small self. But we are talking about the forgiveness aspect. We are talking about events that have already transpired, and where these are sitting within the aura or your body, physical body, as well as pockets of unresolved emotions. And these incidents will be drawing your attention to these unresolved feelings of shame, guilt, self-hatred, basically, and quite simply, a lack of self-love and a lack of self-acceptance. So as you go through this process of release and forgiveness, you are definitely reminded to be gentle with yourself. Do be kind to yourself, because at the end of the day, you are a human being. You're incarnate on a pathway to the divine. Don't expect to be perfect. Don't judge yourself harshly when you find that you may have made errors of judgment in the past, or that you aren't quite as perfect as you would like to be as you face what we might call our flaws, or where we've just done the wrong thing. When I say the wrong, just remember this business of right and wrong, because I think it's probably better to say unwise or unhealthy as opposed to right or wrong. When we judge ourselves harshly in ways that are devoid of kindness and with a lack of self care, we are once again exposing the lack of self love for ourselves. You know, there's no competition in life because we're all going to the same destination. And this is a key message that Stamera gives to us as part of healing is there's no competition. Don't push yourself, um, strive if you can, but don't try and force because that just has the the God, what's the word? The opposite, the opposing action, or consequence. Because when we desire something, we don't need to force it when we're working with the divine. Now, Stamera says sometimes in life, and I've mentioned this too, forgiveness will happen instantaneously and genuine forgiveness, okay? If the relationship itself is not healed, your feelings around the relationship will become healed. Most of the time, however, it does take a little bit more time. Now, from my perspective and my experience, I can think of at least one relationship which has caused me a lot of grief over the lifetime, but at the same time, I'm at peace with it, okay? Sometimes, because I'm giving you this information because this is a process, and the older we are, the more we seem to have to let go of. And in my situation, I'll try and keep this brief. There was some suffering, shall we say, and then I actually did the numerology for the people because they are close family members. And it was actually through understanding numerology that I was able to really find peace within this current situation and accept that what I had been taking offence at, for want of a better description, and beating myself up over was actually all just part of the plan. It was all part of the path. And so understanding numerology just made me be able to totally release all pain and suffering, go, you know what? This situation is not about me. It is about them. It's about their journey. And I can let go of the pain and suffering that I have around this because it's not personal towards me. This is just part of the plan, so to speak. So, just putting my trust and faith in the universe. Stamera explains the blessing and the outcome of this process, whereby as we go through the actions of accepting our feelings and releasing them, and having genuine forgiveness towards the people, the situation. This often involves a level of empathy to yourself and others, by the way. Then you start to feel more serene, kind, happy, and loved. Loving, lovable, loved. Okay, life changes and it reflects healing. The repetitions, the patterns are going to stop. The patterns of recreating pain in your life, and once this pain stops, and once we liberate ourselves, we can then pursue our divine plan. You'll start to recognize the energetic embrace of the angels as you open up to them, which is truly amazing. Even if you still have suffering and pain around you because you live in a world, or we live in a world that is often comprised of suffering and pain, your perception of this suffering is going to change. You'll no longer see it as you did, and you will no longer be overwhelmed by your own despair and anguish, and instead you're going to be filled with a genuine and compassion, a deep compassion, a deep desire to help those people that are experiencing pain themselves. Now, due to the time factor, I'm not going to actually state these invocations here. I've got up other videos that talk to you about how you do an invocation. And if you want me to answer this in any way, shape, or form, just make a comment below and I will respond to it and include it in Sunday Yarning. But in the meantime, here's some suggestions on how you can call upon and invoke Stamera. As always, you invoke the Creator first, followed by the angels. Now, it's up to you as to whether or not you want to call on your guardian angel before you call upon Stamera, or if you use the name Stamera, maybe you want to use the name or call upon the angel of forgiveness. Personalize it to your own comfort levels, but do call on Creator before you call upon the angels, and also make the commitment that you're open to receiving divine love, divine energy, and guidance under grace and in the perfect way. Okay? So, of course, gratitude is vital as part of drawing experiences to us, this magnetic energy approach, to be able to experience more and more blessings. The more grateful we are, the more grateful our heart, the more experiences we attract that are going to be ones that we're grateful for. So the idea is that when you do an invocation, just a reminder here, don't forget to be grateful. This is an example of gratitude that I use, and generally when I do an invocation, I will put this gratitude blessing in before I close down for the day, and then later on I will focus on doing gratitude as well. It's important, if you can, this is one occasion I say to people, you can fake it until you make it with gratitude, because the more we do it, the more grateful we actually start to feel. And when we state it, even if we're not feeling truly grateful in our heart, you know what I mean? It might be a little bit insincere to start with. It's the intention that's behind it. The divine knows that you're trying to be grateful, even though you're not as grateful as you could be, okay? So I'm not sure if I'm explaining this correctly, but either way, extend gratitude and you will start to feel genuine, sincere, heartfelt gratitude after a period of time. It might happen straight away, it might happen a bit longer, but just keep doing the gratitude stuff and don't feel bad if it's not really deep, heartfelt to start with. And, you know, the fact of the matter is that you can actually turn around and tell your angels and guides, I'm sorry that I'm not as grateful. I mean, you might realize that, you know, you're trying to be grateful, but you don't really feel grateful. So you can just have a conversation with your guides and angels and say, look, I'm sorry, but I'm trying. They'll love you just for that, you know? I mean, that's beautiful. And you will genuinely become grateful. So, my friends, that's it for today. Today's video is a little bit longer than I would have liked it to have been, but at the end of the day, forgiveness is a really big subject, especially for now in the current time frame, and certainly for me too. You know, this is something I think that is an ongoing cycle of life that we have to approach as we do our own healing journey. So anyway, where I'm going with this is right now today, I want to say thank you very much for being part of my journey. I hope the information has been helpful to you. I look forward to hearing your feedback, your experiences. If you can hear that little squeak in the background, that is the doggy. And I'm just going to say, look, love you, leave you, have a wonderful day, blessed day, and angel blessings towards you. Take care. Bye-bye for now.